appreciate your patience with us. We are winding down. All good things have to be reevaluated, repositioned. One of the things that I do appreciate about this church family is your young people, your younger generation, that I have not found in many other churches where I've been. And there are several of the younger generation here, and there's some that are out. And just to say thanks to you young generation, young men and young women who have chosen to be a part of this session, I would like to give you a copy of my special designed bookmarkers called Kind Nice. And I've asked Jacob, where is he now? Okay, you do. To just give any of your age group around, just give one of them, okay? Oh dear. There's always somebody younger than their age. I know how that goes. All right. Now, I have 3 more of my books to be given away. I'm going to give 1 now and 2 at our final session. Now, the one that I'm giving is to the person who is here now and who has been a member of this church the longest. Who here today, who is a member of this church and has been here the longest as a member of this church? Okay, that's her. Her name is Sherwin? Shirley? Okay. Now, Shirley, do you know how long has she been a member here? Does anybody know?
This is Shirley.
Shirley, how long have you been a member here?
A charter member.
You're a charter member.
So is Nadine, though.
But Nadine is not here today.
Yes. Yes, she is.
Oh, that's Nadine. All right, so then I have 2 books then, one for Nadine and one for Shirley. Okay, and Nadine, I'll go and get yours now. So how long has it been? 250 years? Okay. Wow. Thank you, ladies, for providing this facility for us.
I got one of those from her last night.
You got one last night.
Our anniversary was right by yours.
Oh, aren't you lucky? Well, I'm giving it to you still. Give it to somebody else. Okay. All right, friends. Now, my other book, Love Me with Tenderness, there are 4 copies left, my wife said. 4 copies left. I don't really want to take them home, unless you really... No, 4 out there, and I have one that's 5. So make sure, please, if you want to get one, do that. So we have 2 more sessions. This one, and then the final one, which is the final one is more of an action one. I'm going to tell you something about me that you do not know. You never would have thought that Pastor Brown or Ewart Brown is a lonely man. You never would have thought so. And every time and everywhere I say that, people are alarmed because you seem so happy, so pleasant, always on top of the mountain, and you're right. But deep down in my soul, I'm lonely. And sometimes I'm saddened by that. And let me tell you why I feel so alone so often. Because, with the exception of my wife, there's nobody else in the world that I trust. With the exception of my wife, there's nobody else in the world that I trust. Somebody to open up my heart to give them my heart, and to say, hold it, cherish it. Take my secret. Handle them with discretion, compassion, and love. And don't use it against me later. I have a lot of contacts from being a pastor all these years, from having friends at school all these years, workmates. There were two people that I tried to trust, and there were two pastors, and both have failed me miserably. One more than other. And I don't have the courage yet to resolve that. Trust is a big subject, very big subject. People don't even want to talk about it anymore. But in this last session, among us, we're going to talk about it. Because we're going to discover that of all the things that we have talked about, maybe this could be the most important that will make or break this church. Trust. So far, we've talked about a number of things, but here we come. And what is sad, I should not have to ask this question. It is sad to ask, but it's real. Can Christians be trusted? If you cannot trust a Christian, who else can you trust? Can Christians be trusted? And I just want to come into your heart and into your space for the next few seconds to ask you, have you ever trusted anyone? Have you ever given your heart to someone and felt totally safe? You might be saying to yourself, Pastor Brown, maybe this subject is not relative. And for you, it might be right. But I have found this question to be very valuable. Is it true that everyone needs a human connection that can be trusted? Is that true? Is that true? No, yes, we've got God. And yes, some of us, we have a spouse or we have a child. But would it be nice if we had a church member that we could trust? So I'm going to give us now some definitions, relational definitions of trust. Trust is falling into Daddy's hands, knowing that you'll be okay. Those of you who are parents or grandparents, kids do that, don't they? They don't fear falling. They just jump. They know that you will catch them. They know that they'll be safe. That's trust. Trust is placing your heart into someone's care, knowing that it will never be hurt, regardless of the time or the circumstances. I love what Catherine Peterson says about trust. She says this: trust is the foundation of real teamwork. In our case, real church life. It is an absolutely critical part of building a team or building a church. In fact, it is probably the most critical. The fact is, if we don't trust one another, and it seems to me that we don't, then we cannot be the kind of team or church that ultimately achieves results. In other words, we can't have church without trust. We have a building of people, but we don't have real intimate church without trust. Steve McCovey says, trust is the one thing that changes everything. Trust is the one thing that changes everything. And I don't remember where I got this. I think I put this together, and I just want to put it out there just in case I got from somewhere. But the fact I don't have a quotation means I put it together. This is about trust. Trust is like a broken glass. It cannot be put together again. You build up trust and somebody let you down. Life will never be the same again. One pastor's wife at the end of one of my seminars said, when you have a broken glass, you can glue it, but it will still leak. One author, this one I like, because my favorite restaurant, do you guys have Olive Garden here in this city? No, you don't. You do? Okay. Well, I love the Olive Garden. I love to have their minestrone soup. You know why? You can get as many refills as possible. So that's why I like this definition of trust. Trust doesn't come with a refill. Oh, no. Once it's gone, you probably won't get it back. And if you do, it will never be the same. And that's a fact. If you have it, don't lose it. And I found somewhere on a health tip defining trust, it says, the most expensive thing in the world is trust. It can take years to earn and just a matter of seconds to lose. I'm going to tell you my firsthand experience with trust. Happened in Bakersfield, California. That's a picture that represents my goddaughter, Nadia. She's 6. So my wife and I went down to spend some time with them, and her mom decided to take us to dinner in another town, distant away. All right, they had a van, we had a car. And Nadia says, Mom, I want to ride with Grandma and Grandpa. Good. So we transferred her car seat into our car. Little Nadia is sitting in the back, and Mom is driving the car, leading us to the restaurant. On a freeway in California, some of you know what driving is like in California on a freeway. 70, 75, and you're only cruising then. So here is Mother ahead, and I am driving behind with Nadia in the back seat. And she sort of whispered to me, she says, Grandpa, close your eyes and I will tell you when to turn. 75, 80 miles an hour on a 4 or 5 lane highway in California, Bakersfield. And I am to close my eyes, and my 6-year-old granddaughter is going to tell me when to turn. That's trust. I notice you're not asking me, did I? Thank you, you're smart. Oh, Nadia, dear, thanks for teaching me this lesson about trust. So why are we talking about trust? For these reasons, talking about potential forest fires. Potential forest fires. And you guys know about fires around here. In this church at Kennewick, if you do not, or if you are having trust in this church, then you have what I call a positive fire that burns up everything else because you trust one another. In this church, if you have trust, then you have created what I call a positive fire which consumes all of the other negatives. There's nothing you cannot do. There is nothing you cannot accomplish if you have trust, if you can trust one another in this church. The opposite is also true. If you do not have trust, and the people here do not trust one another, then you have created what I call a negative fire which consumes every good thing you try. If the people do not trust one another, every good thing we try to do will fail. Because that is a negative fire. That's why we're talking about trust. Talk about trust erosion. There are certain things that happen which cause trust to erode in your church, such as, number one, having a delivery van. A delivery van simply means a person who talks too much. We call them gossipers. We call them negative information carriers. We have many names for them. One of the factors that cause trust to erode is people who tell too much about other people's business, which is none of their business. Another factor is if we're promise breakers. We simply do not live up to our expectations or promises we have made and have failed. Or simply chemistry. People will not trust you just because of who you are. They have no real reason, but they just look at you and say, I don't trust that person. And there's nothing you can do about chemistry. Informal, we can stop talking. Promise breakers, we can be faithful. But when it's chemistry, there's nothing we can do. That's just who we are. Trust erode when we offer careless words. Careless words are what we call information sharing, or what we call negative evangelism or gossip. Any of these terms are careless words, and these will erode trust in your church. I created this statement many, many years ago back in Canada. I was just a young theology major student, but I liked it. It said, never expose a wound except to a physician. In other words, don't tell other people's business, especially if they can do nothing about it. If it's gossip, keep it. If it's information to improve, tell it cautiously, lovingly, godly. Never expose a wound except to a physician. Remember, words matter, so use them wisely. I have discovered in my time working with different churches that one of the things that the church family is really longing for is to have a church family that they can really trust. It's one thing to have good fellowship dinners. It's another thing to have good picnics, but it's another thing to open your heart to. And that's where I am. It's a deeper level here, where to trust somebody is to open your heart to somebody. I want to tell you my story, and I don't want it repeated. You can't tell anybody without permission. I want to trust you and how I'm really feeling, what is really bothering me, but I am afraid to. Who can I trust? Why the discussion of trust? Because we've discovered that trust is a critical part and the foundation of relationship. And this is what we've learned, that when there is trust in the church, there are a few things that happen, 3 things that happen when there's trust. Worship has meaning. You see, coming to church is good. But coming to church to worship with God and fellowship is another level. Would you believe that many of us just come to church because it's the right thing to do? And it's a good thing to do. We would rather you be here than at home. But to get the maximum benefit, we come to church, but we come and we worship God and we fellowship with our brethren, fellow believers. When there is trust, worship has meaning. That means there is intimacy. There is good, positive, deep relationship. Not only worship has meaning, but the members are connecting. You're talking with one another. Shh, can I tell you something that is really bothering me? The members are connecting, and notice this one, the pews are filling. When there's trust in this church, we can expect these. Worship has meaning, members are connecting, and the pews are surely filling. Now I'm going to go into another area of trust that is totally fascinating. And I call it talking turn. Talking turn. This section is valuable. You need to recognize, period, that people need to talk. Church members need to talk. It was like a secretary walked into my office and said, "Pastor, there's somebody here to see you who said, I need to talk to someone." Every one of us needs to talk. And even if you don't admit it, I'm going to tell you, people need to talk. Talk in term. Let's take that a little bit further. The more people talk, the better they feel, the healthier and the happier they will be. The more people talk, the healthier and happier they will be, because they are talking. Listen to this one now. And when I talk to, I'm looking for you now, red shirt. Give me your name again. Ken. Now, Ken, did you tell me that you worked in psychiatry? Yes? Good. So, I am going to touch a button in you, talking about talking. Now, follow me, please. Yes, I too had worked in psychiatry for some time as a psychiatric therapist. Had the privilege of seeing a turnover of patients. They come in and they go. I have a feeling that Ken is going to agree with me that the people whom we discharged from psychiatry, it was not because of the medication. When I worked in psychiatry, that's many years ago, Ken, that's I think 275 years ago. Things could have changed in your time, in your younger days. But in my days when I worked there, we discharged the patients not because of the medication. We only gave them medication to relax them. And when they relax, guess what they do? They talk. They talk. We discharged patients only because they have talked. And we were able to understand and reason together. Talking cures. Men, this is for you. One psychiatrist told us back then that there were more men who died from a heart attack than women. There were more men who died from heart attack than women. And you know why? Women don't die from heart attack because they talk. Women talk. Men keep. Women talk. Men keep. Keep kills. We need to talk. Well, Dr. Ornish said about that, many studies have shown that talking about your feelings to others improves physical health, enhances immune function, reduces cardiovascular reactivity, decreases absentee rates, and may even prolong life. Talking does this. Talking, just allow her, just allow him to talk. Talk wins. But here is the question. Having said all of that, in terms of the value of talking, here now is the question. How can I talk if I don't trust you? Got it? Talking heals. Who am I going to talk to? How can I talk to you if I don't trust you? Now, I hope you get that. We're talking about trust and what trust does. Oh, I found it so necessary to include this in our conversation because so many of us wear masks to church on Sabbaths or during the week. When I say wear masks, I'm not talking about Halloween mask. I'm talking about a smile on the face, a language that is beautified when deep down hurting. How are you today? Oh, fine. Lie. Not fine. But who are you going to tell? Who are you going to tell? If you don't trust me, why are you going to tell me that you're hurting? If you don't trust me, you're not going to tell me the truth. So you give me a masked answer. I'm fine. Everything is fine. Why do we talk about trust? Here's a twist. What people see in people, they see the same in God. You know what that means? If people don't trust people, people find it more difficult to trust God. Very biblical. If they can't trust what they can see, that's you and me, how can they trust him whom they cannot see? Trust in people builds trust in God. And so I asked just two questions at this junction. They're only provocative, don't have to respond. And one of the questions is, whom do you trust in this church family? Seriously, take a few seconds and reflect. Is there anybody in this church family, Kennewick Church, or my friends from British Columbia, or any church you're from? Reflect. Is there anybody in that church whom you trust? you could tell your secrets to, give your heart to, and you know it will be safe. Who? The second question that I would ask, which is more personal, can you be trusted? Can you be trusted? And so, where I'm going to take you now is to let us take a look at behaviors where there's a trust in the church. When there's trust in the church, there are certain behaviors that you can expect. Number one, without numberizing them, where there's trust, there is freedom to just talk. You don't have to worry about people criticizing you. You just talk. Freedom, self-express. Freedom to adventure and to make mistakes, to explore. There's freedom to share. Maybe without restraint, good or bad. There is freedom to cry, to laugh, to be. You know what is amazing about me? I've pastored a number of churches over my number of years. But I never knew the benefit of trust until we pastored the last church in Salem, Oregon. Because that was the first church where I ever felt free to shed a tear. It was the first church where I ever opened my heart. This was the first church that knew anything about me. It was the first church that knew that I was born in a little country, lived into a little one-room house, no father, just a mother. I never told anybody. I've always wanted to, but never did because I never trusted them. When we went to Salem, East Salem Church, I discovered I found a different group of people. And I began to develop a trust in them. And I began to talk to them. It was so pleasant when the head elder one day came up to me and he said, "Ewart, I'm so glad you're a human being." You know, I pastored for a lot of years before that and never knew what it meant to be a human being. I was always a professional. Always professional. That's what I wanted to be. When I went to the East Salem, I was able to let all my hair down. Let your what down? My hair. And relax and be at home because I trusted the people. And I'm just wondering how you feel here. When there's trust, you're at home. You could cry, you could laugh, you can just be yourself. Where there's trust, there's a delight to be here for church. There's a desire to please, to do whatever you're asked to do. And you do your task very faithfully because you trust. It changes your entire chemistry. You're just happy to be here. And Judy, whoever she is, she gives away her heart. Because she knows it is safe. And this is a place she can rest. Why? Because there are kind, nice people here. On the other hand, if we don't trust one another here at this church, there are some behaviors that we can expect. We don't talk. We're silent. We don't talk, and if we talk, we only give partial truth, half of the story. We ask a lot of questions, why, because we're suspicious. We withdraw, and we avoid, and we resign. We talked about that earlier. We resign from positions. When there's no trust, then we change to another church. But you know what concerns me, Ken? And you and all of the other medical people are recognizing this, that when we do not trust and we keep rather than release, chemistry happen in our bodies. Certain, I forgot the term I'm looking for, that gets into the body, into the brain, that causes health issues. That's why now, when we go to see a doctor, they have you do tests and tests and tests, and many of the tests come back negative. Because there is no x-ray to show the absence of trust. No x-ray, no blood test shows that. But when we don't trust, we keep. And when we keep, it becomes like a cancer. Actually, wasn't going to tell you this, wasn't planning to. But there's a study out that I have included in other part of my seminar, that the absence of trust, the absence of, or the presence of negativism can cause cancer. The absence of trust, the presence of negativism, and some other factors do lead to cancer. How? Because the absence of trust means that we are keeping, which takes away the energy that our body needs to fight diseases. And those mechanisms and those police officers that you need to fight diseases, which are destroyed by the cancerous negative thoughts, now you have no more police, then you just make room for cancer cells to grow. Great calculation. So when we don't have any trust, we can expect health issues. And they are immeasurable because no test shows them. Or we just have a tortured, miserable life. Everything shuts down. Everything in your life closes because there is no trust. So now, as I move towards conclusion on this subject, a good question to ask Pastor Brown is, how do we build trust here at Kennewick? I'm going to share a few things with you, a few pointers, and your study sheet should have them. Number one, be a good listener. If you want people to trust you, learn to listen. Talk less, listen more. If you want to be someone who people can trust, be a good listener. Talk less and listen more. Something else, be a promise keeper. When you promise that you are going to bring a couple dozen eggs tomorrow, do it. Bring it tomorrow. And if you said you're coming over on Tuesday at noon, be there on Tuesday at noon. It doesn't matter how simple it is or how large it is. When we make a promise, keep it. Trust is built on promises being kept, whether they are small or large. Learn to keep promises. People will trust us when we keep our promises. Be kind, nice. Oh, dear hearts. Last night, Friday night, I broke what I told you of this church person who said that the people in the world, in the bars, are nicer than the people in the church. We've got to change that. We want people now to say that the nicest people in all of North America are the people at the Kennewick Church. Amen? Why not? If we want people to trust us, let us be kind, nice people. Let us be closed box. That simply means when I tell you my secrets, keep it. Don't be a radio station, television station, transmission station. Secrets is between you and me. Why will people trust you? Another reason over which you have very little control is chemistry. People just look at you and say they trust you. I like this one, and you need to keep this in mind. This is a dialogue that you have. Jennifer, let us have lunch tomorrow to talk through our differences. Lunch is on me. I am bringing you a little something. I promise you what we talk about will be between us and us alone. I promise. In order to build trust, have a conversation, and here is the point: spend time together. You know that there is some love affair that do occur long distance. It does happen, but we don't build trust long distance. We've got to spend time together. Then we've got to be honest. Tell the stories about you, and you will be told stories, and tell the truth. People need to know that you genuinely care. I am going to share another point about how to build trust, which is a key. It's simple, but it's key. I hope you will get it. In order for people to trust you in this church, they need to know and believe that they belong to this church family. It is belongingness that opens up one's avenues and one's desire to entrust and to give away. It is belongingness that enables one to want to give away him or her heart. In other words, trust begins when there's a sense of belonging. You don't trust strangers. You don't trust enemies. You trust the one who draws you in, makes you feel you belong. You want someone to trust you. They need to know that you are a friend. Be kind and nice. This is what I am longing for. A member of the Kennewick Church says, I am longing for someone to trust. I am longing to place a place to rest my heart. I've been carrying it, and it is heavy. And you know what I know, dear friends? When we have developed this trust among us, when we have it, we will say to one another, here's our language: it feels so good sharing my heart with you. You know what? When I began this last session, I told you that I'm a happy person, I'm fulfilled, I have everything that I need. Everything except one. A heart friend beside my wife, to whom I can just be loose and whole, just leave my heart in his or her hand, knowing that is safe. When there is trust, we will be able to say, it feels so good sharing my heart with you. Or, you're the one I really want to worship you with. Why? Because I trust you. Or we would say, you're the reason I come to this church, because I trust you. And as I put this presentation together, this grips my heart. In the book of John, chapter 14, my favorite chapter, Jesus said, do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. Jesus said that. And how I wished that you could say this about me. Ewart, don't worry. or if I could say this about you, don't worry. You trust God, you can also trust me. Wouldn't that be nice? You can also trust me. I think I like this last slide very much. It says, I know I can always trust you. I know I can always. Okay, am I back up? I'm backing up. So, as we conclude this session, this particular one on trust, before we go into our final session, I want to take you back to heaven. So here we are with Jesus. That's where we started on Friday night. When Jesus says, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. And Jesus continues, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers or sisters here in the Kennewick Church, Jesus said, you did it for me. And we said, really, Jesus? Really? And Jesus says, yes, really. Whatever you did for a member in the Kennewick Church, you did it for me. You loved, you cared, you respected, you encouraged, you connected, you made significant, you built trust. Jesus said, you did it to me. Wow. Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, we haven't reached yet, but we're on our way. We're journeying to become like your Son, Jesus. In every way, but in particular, the way we love, the way we care for one another here in this church. Oh God, please, please, with the information we have received thus far, enable us, please, make us to be all that Jesus is and all that he wants us to be. In his name we pray. Amen. Amen. We're going to give you 5 minutes stretch and ask you to come back for the last session that starts in 5 minutes on what we call reflection. And I won't tell you about it, but just take a 5-minute stretch and we'll be back for the last walk of the journey.